Okay, so this video is going to explain how we properly implement IRC 280AG, which is the Augusta rule that we have talked about. Now, the purpose of doing these steps is to make sure that we're justifying and documenting the business approval and business purposes of this home rental. So the first thing that we're going to go through in this workbook is what we call our valuation worksheet. So the purpose of the valuation worksheet is, the company needs to determine what is the fair market value of renting a space for meetings, for events, for parties, for board meetings, vendor meetings in their area, right? Because different areas have different costs, whether it's city, whether it's suburbs. There needs to be a determined cost structure to justify the fair market value. So in this case, we're going to use Boston as an example. We're going to say XYZ company has looked at the following locations. So the first location we see here was $700 per day for an executive suite. And we see the second location that we got a quote from $1,000 per day, but it's a hotel conference room. They have food and it's up on a higher floor. So, okay, there we have two quotes from a hotel and from an office building of what would it cost to rent out a meeting room for a day. So we know it's between $700 and $1,000 in this zip code where XYZ company is located. So that's great. We feel good about that. That's done. We can put this in the records now. So the board has a record of what the cost should be for the fair market rental of a home. Second thing we're going to go through is we want to put in place a rental agreement, right? Because any arm's length transaction, fair market value transaction, it's not going to be verbal. It's not going to be handshake. It's going to be documented. So in this case, we're saying, hey, Greg owns the residence and he is renting this residence to XYZ company. And the property being rented is this address in Boston, Mass for one day. And we're saying that the agreed upon rent is $750, right? So between the $700 and $1,000 on a conservative end here, that's due and payable on that day of the event. Any other expenses incurred would have to be reimbursed by the company. Great. So pretty straightforward here. This should be done each time that and dated each time that the Augusta rule is used. So not just one time, every time. And for implementation purposes, we're saying, okay, with something like this, the board should formally adopt this. So we're saying, hey, there's a special meeting of the board that happens one time. This happened in April at Greg's residence with the following directors and advisors that were here for XYZ company. And we're waiving notice, meaning we're not publishing a notice to all shareholders about this. We're having a special meeting of the board. And then finally, we put these minutes together here. So saying that, that the board here has agreed that we're going to rent, as you see here, or approval of the rent of the residence for various vendor meetings, employee meetings, other business events, and that a valuation was conducted and we're using the daily rental rate of $750. So this is saying, hey, we've gone through these steps. Now us as the board, we're voting to approve the business to rent the property from this individual. And, we understand that, as you said here, it's not a secret that the board knows that the premises is generally used for the residence of one of the shareholders or directors. So that's important here as well. So again, this is the board one time implementing this on, such and such date. So very important for this to be done correctly. A few of the best practices to talk about, we're going to want to, every time we do the Augusta rule, as we said, we're going to want to make sure that this one day agreement's in place here. If the rate changes, that's okay. Second, we're going to make sure that after the meeting is conducted, there should be simple minutes, right? There needs to be a document of what actually happened at the meeting because otherwise there's no real record of what happened. So simple Word document, notes of what happened. Doesn't have to be too formal of what happened at the meeting. Third, there should be an invoice from the individual to the company for the amount. So in this case, Greg would send XYZ company invoice for $750 payable the day of the event to be paid in cash, to be paid in check. Again, another formality that shows the business purpose and the fair market value transaction. So of course, we're here to help answer questions along the way, but this packet will be very important to completing properly and making sure you have a fair market value for the residents.